Picture this: you sitting at an upscale country club dinner, watching your father praise your sister for her free-spirited lifestyle, while calling you selfish for working too much. What he doesn't know is that you've been secretly paying your sister's rent for 2 years straight, $1,400 every month, while she posts Instagram photos from Miami vacations and carries designer handbags. The breaking point comes when she asks for another $300 for a business opportunity that turns out to be funding her latest splurge, all while you're eating ramen noodles to make ends meet. That night, I finally exploded. I told everyone at that dinner table exactly where my selfish money had been going for 24 months. The silence was deafening, but it was the most liberating moment of my life. If you've ever been the family ATM while being labeled as the problem, if you've sacrificed your dreams to enable someone else's lifestyle, or if you're ready to learn why sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no, this story will hit you like a lightning bolt. Hit subscribe if you're ready to stop being taken for granted and start living authentically. My name is Audra Wilson, 32 years old, and until recently, I wore the invisible crown of the family's designated rescuer. I was the one who worked herself into exhaustion, the one who swallowed her dreams to fund someone else's fantasies, the one who smiled through gritted teeth while being called heartless by the very people draining my bank account dry. That explosive evening at the Oak Brook Country Club changed everything. When my father looked me dead in the eye and called me selfish in front of his wealthy friends, something inside my chest cracked open like a dam bursting. After 29 years of silence, after countless nights lying awake calculating how to stretch my paycheck to cover both our lives, I finally unleashed the truth that had been suffocating me. The look of shock on his face when I revealed I'd been funding my sister's entire existence for 2 years was worth every second of the uncomfortable silence that crashed over that dining room like a tidal wave. But before I tell you about the moment I detonated my family's carefully constructed lies, let me paint you a picture of how I became the family's silent martyr while being branded as its villain. Growing up in Oak Brook felt like living in a perfectly manicured prison. Every lawn was sculpted to magazine perfection, every family competed in an unspoken Olympics of achievement, and in our house, the gold medal always belonged to my younger sister Vanessa. She arrived when I was 3, and according to my mother's whispered confessions years later, my father Harold had been hoping for a second daughter with more sparkle than his serious, bookish firstborn. Vanessa delivered that sparkle in abundance. She possessed this magnetic quality that made adults melt at her feet, while I stood in her shadow like a forgotten piece of furniture. Vanessa could charm the paint off walls, my father would announce at neighborhood barbecues, his chest puffed with pride, while I existed as background scenery in my own family portrait. My mother Diana played the role of Switzerland, desperately trying to maintain peace, without actually addressing the warfare happening under our roof. Instead of confronting Harold's blatant favoritism, she'd pull me aside after particularly brutal incidents, and whisper her hollow reassurances. "Your father loves you differently, sweetheart. He just doesn't know how to show it." What she really meant was that he showed it rarely, if at all. The inequality was so stark it felt like living in 2 different families under the same roof. When I earned straight A's semester after semester, bleeding over textbooks until my eyes burned, I received a distracted nice work from Harold. But when Vanessa landed a tiny role in the 7th grade production of Annie, he bought her a bouquet bigger than she was and took us to the fanciest steakhouse in downtown Chicago. "Your sister has that special something," he explained when I questioned why academic excellence warranted less celebration than memorizing 3 lines in a school play. "Schoolwork is easy for you, so it doesn't count as much." Nothing was easy for me. While Vanessa floated between activities like a butterfly sampling flowers, I was grinding through homework until midnight, my fingers cramped around pencils, my brain aching from effort. But in Harold's world, natural charisma trumped hard work every single time. The family dynamics shifted into an even more twisted configuration when our parents divorced during my junior year. At 16, I was drowning in AP classes while processing the emotional earthquake of our family's collapse. Vanessa, only 13, became Harold's designated emotional support system during the separation proceedings. He leaned on her like a crutch while expecting me to stand strong on my own, the reliable one who didn't need comfort or guidance. Weekend visits to his bachelor pad became another stage for the inequality show. Harold would plan elaborate adventures for Vanessa while leaving me to entertain myself in his sterile apartment, flipping through magazines and wondering why I wasn't worth the effort. Anytime I expressed disappointment, I was labeled as demanding or ungrateful compared to my easygoing sister, who never complained because she never had reason to. College became the next battlefield in this war of unequal treatment. Throughout high school, I'd worked 25 hours a week at a local bookstore, squirreling away every dollar for tuition while maintaining my perfect GPA. I assumed Harold would contribute something toward my education, not everything, but something to acknowledge my efforts. Instead, I was told that independence would build character, and that student loans were a valuable life lesson. Meanwhile, when Vanessa's time came, Harold covered every penny of her expenses: tuition, apartment, car, spending money, the works. Vanessa needs more support, he explained without a trace of irony. She's more sensitive than you. You've always been self-sufficient. Self-sufficient by necessity, not by choice. I clawed my way through Northwestern University, working 30 hours weekly at a coffee shop that reeked of burnt espresso and broken dreams. Between classes and shifts, I survived on 3 hours of sleep and pure determination, maintaining a 3.8 GPA while my hands stayed permanently stained with coffee grounds. Those years blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and growing bitterness, as I watched Vanessa drift through 3 different colleges like a tourist sampling vacation destinations. Each time she quit, Harold would fund her next fresh start with endless patience. Education isn't for everyone, he'd say, defending her latest academic abandonment. Vanessa is creative. She needs to find her own path. Her path, apparently, involved my father's wallet funding every detour. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a respected marketing firm in Chicago. Through 70-hour work weeks and relentless ambition, I climbed to executive level by 30. Every promotion was earned through sweat and sacrifice, every success built on a foundation of sleepless nights and missed social events. Vanessa, meanwhile, had perfected the art of job hopping. She'd start positions with infectious enthusiasm, only to quit the moment work became challenging or monotonous. Receptionist, retail associate, yoga instructor, personal assistant, she collected job titles like souvenirs, never staying anywhere long enough to develop real skills or earn promotions. Her romantic life followed the same pattern. She'd move in with boyfriends during the honeymoon phase, only to find herself scrambling for housing when reality set in and relationships crumbled under the weight of her financial instability. Throughout all this chaos, I built a small circle of people who could see through our family's carefully crafted narrative. My best friend Sophia had witnessed the favoritism since childhood and served as my reality check when I questioned my own perceptions. "Your family treats you like a human ATM," she told me bluntly after one particularly painful holiday gathering. "They extract everything you have but never acknowledge the withdrawal." My relationship with Derek, a graphic designer I'd been dating for 2 years, provided another anchor of sanity. Unlike previous boyfriends who'd found my family situation too complicated to navigate, Derek recognized the manipulation and encouraged me to establish boundaries. "You can't light yourself on fire to keep other people warm," he'd remind me whenever I wavered between self-preservation and family obligation. The newest addition to our dysfunctional family circus was Brenda, Harold's second wife, 15 years younger, and immediately aligned with Team Vanessa. From her first family gathering, Brenda positioned herself as Vanessa's advocate and cheerleader, often suggesting I needed to loosen up and be more supportive of my struggling sister. "Family means helping family," she'd say with meaningful glances in my direction whenever Vanessa mentioned her latest crisis. What none of them understood, what I was too ashamed to admit, was that I had been helping. I'd been bleeding money for years while they painted me as the family's heartless villain. The arrangement that would eventually lead to our explosive reckoning began 2 years ago, with a hysterical phone call at 11:30 p.m. Vanessa was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words through the static of tears and panic. Tyler, her boyfriend of 8 months, had ended their relationship and demanded she vacate the apartment they'd shared. Rent was due in 3 days, and Vanessa had exactly $47 in her checking account. "I have nowhere to go," she wailed into the phone. "Harold says I can't move back in because they converted the spare room into Brenda's home gym. Can I stay with you for just a few weeks?" My 1-bedroom apartment was barely large enough for me, let alone accommodating Vanessa's dramatic lifestyle and extensive belongings. More importantly, I treasured my personal space and knew from childhood experience that living with Vanessa meant constant chaos and emotional turbulence. "I can't take you in," I said carefully, "but I can help you find your own place. What can you afford for rent?" The answer was devastating: almost nothing. Vanessa had been contributing minimally to Tyler's rent while spending her part-time barista earnings on clothes, restaurants, and weekend trips with friends. Now she faced Chicago's brutal rental market with nearly zero income and no savings. Against Derek's warnings and my own better judgment, I agreed to help her secure a studio apartment in Wicker Park. The rent was $1,400 monthly, reasonable for the neighborhood, but completely beyond Vanessa's financial reality. "I'll cover the first 3 months," I told her firmly. "That gives you time to find a better paying job and establish some stability." Vanessa was overflowing with gratitude, promising to update her resume immediately and pursue higher paying opportunities. I even connected her with contacts at several companies, leveraging professional relationships I'd spent years carefully cultivating. 3 months evaporated like steam. Vanessa had found work at a boutique clothing store, but was earning barely enough to cover utilities and food, let alone rent. Each time I mentioned our agreement, she had a fresh excuse ready. The job market was impossible, the boutique wasn't giving her enough hours, she needed expensive clothes for interviews, or unexpected medical bills had drained her resources. "Just 1 more month," became her battle cry. "I promise I'll figure something out." 1 month stretched into 6, then 12, then 18. Before I fully comprehended what was happening, I'd been paying Vanessa's rent for 2 consecutive years, watching my own financial dreams evaporate like morning mist. The down payment I'd been saving for a condo remained frozen in place. The master's degree program I'd planned to pursue stayed on indefinite hold. The European vacation Derek and I had been designing was permanently shelved. Meanwhile, Vanessa's Instagram account told a completely different story than her supposed financial hardship. Weekend getaways to Michigan wine country, designer clothes with tags still attached, expensive restaurant meals with friends. Her social media painted the picture of someone living well above their means. Each time I questioned these expenditures, she had explanations ready. Friends had treated her, she'd found incredible sales, someone else had mostly paid for trips. Always someone else's generosity, never acknowledgement that her lifestyle was funded by my sacrifice. The financial drain was crippling, but the emotional toll was worse. Every month, transferring that $1,400 felt like screaming into a soundproof room. No one in our family knew about this arrangement, not even my mother. Vanessa had sworn me to secrecy, claiming embarrassment about her struggles. In reality, she wasn't struggling at all. She had free housing courtesy of my labor, while maintaining the lifestyle of someone earning 3 times her actual income. The family narrative remained infuriatingly unchanged. At gatherings, Harold and Brenda would praise Vanessa for finding her way and doing her best despite challenges. My career successes received brief acknowledgement before someone changed the subject to something more interesting Vanessa was doing. Are you joining the family trip to Lake Geneva this summer? Harold asked during one of our Sunday phone calls. I don't think I can get the time off, I lied. The truth was that after paying 2 rents plus trying to maintain some semblance of retirement savings, another expense was impossible. You work too obsessively, Audra, he sighed. There's more to existence than climbing corporate ladders. Look at Vanessa, she doesn't make much money, but she understands how to live in the moment and enjoy life. I swallowed the obvious response that Vanessa could live in the moment because someone else was subsidizing her reality. Instead, I changed topics, choking down my resentment like poison. The comments about my supposed selfishness began multiplying like cancer cells. When I couldn't contribute to an expensive group gift for Harold's 60th birthday, Brenda made a point of saying, I guess some people have different priorities, with a look that could have cut glass. When I missed a family dinner due to a work deadline, Harold texted that I was too focused on your own life to think about family. The irony was suffocating. I was literally sacrificing my financial future for my sister while being labeled selfish by people who had no idea what I was giving up. Derek witnessed my struggle firsthand, watching as I calculated and recalculated monthly budgets to accommodate Vanessa's rent while maintaining my own obligations. This isn't sustainable, he said one night after I'd declined a weekend getaway because of money concerns. You're enabling her to stay stuck while punishing yourself. What am I supposed to do? I asked. Let her become homeless. She wouldn't be homeless, he said gently. She'd have to make different choices. Maybe get roommates, move to a cheaper area, or work full-time like most adults. You're not helping her by removing the natural consequences of her decisions. I knew he was right, but years of family conditioning made it nearly impossible to imagine standing up for myself. How would Harold react? How would it affect my already fragile relationship with Vanessa? Would this be the final blow that shattered our family beyond repair? Still, something had to break. I tried a gentler approach first, meeting Vanessa for coffee to discuss a transition toward financial independence. I need to start focusing on my own financial goals, I explained carefully. I can't keep covering your full rent indefinitely. Vanessa's eyes immediately filled with tears, her default response to any uncomfortable conversation. Are you cutting me off? She asked, voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. You know I can't afford that place alone. Do you want me to be homeless? Of course not, I backtracked immediately, hating my own weakness. I just thought maybe we could create a plan where you gradually take over more responsibility. She sniffled, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. I'm really trying, Audra. I had to reduce my hours this month because of anxiety. The manager was scheduling me for too many closing shifts, and you know how that affects my sleep. Just like that, the conversation shifted from her taking responsibility to me feeling guilty for adding to her stress. I left that coffee shop having agreed to continue full payments for another 3 months. The cycle of enabling continued, my resentment growing alongside my shrinking savings account. Something would have to break this pattern, and as it turned out, that something would be my patience, pushed to its absolute limit by one family dinner too many. The annual Wilson family gathering at Oak Brook Country Club was Harold's tradition since the divorce, a June celebration he called honoring our ongoing bond despite life's changes. In reality, it was his opportunity to showcase his success and patriarchal position while we all played our assigned roles. As the date approached, my anxiety mounted like storm clouds. These dinners followed the same script, Harold holding court while Brenda smiled adoringly, Vanessa charming everyone with amusing stories, and me sitting quietly, fielding occasional work questions before conversation moved to more interesting topics. 2 days before the dinner, Vanessa called with what had become a predictable emergency. Audra, I hate to ask, but I need a favor, she began with the hesitant tone that always preceded financial requests. There's this amazing opportunity for a pop-up boutique event, but I need to pay for a vendor table up front. It could really help me start my own business. Vanessa's business ideas had become a revolving door of abandoned dreams. Last month, personal styling. Before that, wellness blogging. None ever materialized beyond initial excitement, and certainly none produced income. How much do you need? I asked, already mentally adjusting my budget. Just $300, she said quickly. The event is this weekend, and I could make back triple that if I sell even half my inventory. What inventory? I asked. I didn't know you had products to sell. Well, I need to buy some things to resell, she admitted, but I've done all the research. Trust me, this is going to be different. Against my better judgment and Derek's imagined disapproval, I transferred the money. Good luck. I hope it works out. The night of the dinner arrived, and I drove to the country club with familiar dread mixed with obligation. The dining room was elegant as always, crisp white tablecloths, soft candlelight creating an atmosphere of refined comfort. Harold and Brenda were already there with their friends, the Hayes and Porter's couples in their 60s who'd known our family for years. I spotted Vanessa across the room, animated in conversation with Mrs. Porter. As I approached, I noticed the large Louis Vuitton handbag on her arm, its distinctive pattern catching the light. The bag was brand new and, from my knowledge of luxury goods, cost at least $2,000, far more than the $300 I'd sent for her supposed business opportunity. My stomach tightened as realization dawned. There was no pop-up event, no vendor table, no business plan. The money had gone toward a luxury purchase, while I'd been eating ramen noodles 3 nights a week to offset the constant financial drain. Audra, you finally made it. Harold called out, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. We were just discussing Vanessa's exciting weekend plans. I took my seat, accepting wine from the server and desperately needing its calming effects. Yes, Vanessa was telling us about this wonderful Miami trip she's taking with friends, Mrs. Hayes said, smiling warmly. A well-deserved break from what I hear. I nearly choked on my wine. Miami? I echoed, staring directly at Vanessa. She avoided my gaze, suddenly fascinated by the dinner menu. Just a quick girls' weekend, nothing fancy, she mumbled. Vanessa found an amazing deal on flights, Harold added proudly. Always the savvy one when it comes to finding opportunities. The server arrived to take orders, temporarily halting conversation. I sat in stunned silence, piecing together the full picture. The business opportunity had been a cover story for remaining money she needed for a vacation, likely planned weeks in advance. The designer bag was probably another splurge justified as something she deserved. As appetizers arrived, conversation shifted to other topics. Mr. Porter discussed his recent golf victory, Brenda shared garden club stories, Harold regaled everyone with anecdotes from his Boston business trip. Through it all, I remained quiet, a storm brewing behind my polite smile. Audra, you're unusually silent tonight, Harold finally noted during the main course. Everything all right at work? Work is fine, I replied evenly. Just processing some information. You work too obsessively, he said dismissively. All those office hours, and for what? You need to enjoy life more, like your sister. Vanessa smiled uncomfortably, perhaps sensing my growing tension. Speaking of enjoying life, Brenda interjected, Vanessa, tell everyone about that new yoga studio you discovered. As Vanessa launched into descriptions of some overpriced boutique fitness class, I felt my patience fraying like rope under tension. Every word emphasized the disparity in how we lived and how our family perceived us. She was the free spirit, the fun one, the one who knew how to live. I was the workaholic, the serious one, supposedly missing out on life's pleasures. No one at that table knew her carefree lifestyle existed because of my sacrifice. No one knew the rent for the apartment, where she practiced leisurely morning routines, came from my overworked hours. No one knew my dreams were on hold so she could chase whims. This unacknowledged reality pressed down on me as dinner progressed. Each laugh, each approving nod from Harold toward Vanessa, each dismissive glance in my direction tightened the knot of resentment in my chest. By dessert menus, I was holding myself together by the thinnest thread of composure. Then came the comment that would finally snap that thread. "I'm thinking about taking a pottery class this summer," Vanessa announced as we considered dessert options. "I've always wanted to try it, and there's this amazing studio in Bucktown." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," Harold beamed. "It's good to explore your creative side." "It's a bit expensive," Vanessa admitted, twirling her hair the way she always did when leading up to requests. "But I think it would be really fulfilling. Worth every penny for something that feeds your soul," Brenda agreed. "Life's too short not to pursue your passions." I took a long sip of water, trying to cool the heat rising in my chest. The pottery class was clearly the next thing she expected me to fund after the rent, after the business opportunity that became a Miami trip, after 2 years of constant financial support. "What about you, Audra?" Mrs. Porter asked kindly, perhaps noticing my discomfort. "Do you have any summer plans?" Before I could answer, Harold jumped in. "Audra doesn't have time for hobbies or vacations. Too busy climbing the corporate ladder." "I actually had to cancel plans to take graduate courses this summer," I said quietly. "Budget constraints." "That's the problem with your generation," Mr. Hayes commented. "Too focused on credentials, not enough on experiences. Or maybe some of us have different priorities and responsibilities," I countered, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Harold frowned. "There's no need to be defensive, Audra. Howard is just making conversation." "I'm not being defensive. I'm stating a fact." "See, this is exactly what I mean," Harold said, his voice rising slightly. "Your sister takes constructive comments in stride. You always have to argue and make things difficult." The table fell uncomfortably silent. Even the Hayes and Porters seemed to sense they'd stumbled into family tension. "I don't make things difficult," I said evenly. "I have different circumstances." "What different circumstances?" Harold scoffed. "You make twice what your sister does. You live alone with no dependents. You should have plenty of disposable income for things you enjoy." That was the moment something shifted inside me. The careful wall I'd built around my resentment began to crumble. 2 years of silence, of enabling, of being the family ATM, while being labeled selfish suddenly felt unbearable. "You have no idea what my financial situation is," I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the emotion churning inside. "I know you're doing well in your career," he dismissed. "And I know you choose to spend it all on yourself, while your sister struggles to make ends meet." The unfairness of his assessment hit me like a physical blow. I looked around the table at these people, who had completely misunderstood my life and character, and decided the truth could no longer remain hidden. "Dad," I said, placing my napkin beside my plate, "when was the last time you helped Vanessa financially?" He blinked, surprised by the direct question. "Well, I helped her with the security deposit when she moved in, and I've taken her shopping occasionally." "And who do you think pays her rent every month?" The table went completely still. Even the background noise of the country club seemed to fade as all eyes turned to me. "What are you talking about?" Harold asked, genuine confusion on his face. "I have been paying Vanessa's rent for 2 years," I said, the words finally released into the open. $1,400 every month, directly to her landlord. That's why I can't afford graduate school, or vacations, or pottery classes." Harold turned to Vanessa, whose face had drained of color. "Is this true?" Vanessa's eyes darted around the table, looking for an escape route that didn't exist. It's complicated. Audra offered to help temporarily when Tyler and I broke up. It was supposed to be short-term. 2 years isn't short-term, I said. And I didn't offer. You called me crying at midnight, saying you'd be homeless. You could have said no, she muttered. Yes, I could have. That's my mistake, one I'm rectifying tonight. I turned back to Harold, whose expression had shifted from confusion to discomfort. So when you call me selfish for not taking vacations or pursuing hobbies, understand that the money that might have gone to those things has been keeping a roof over your favorite daughter's head instead. Now, Audra, Harold started, clearly trying to regain control of the situation, there's no need to be dramatic about this. I'm not being dramatic. I'm subsidizing someone else's lifestyle while being criticized for how I spend my own money. I'm sure Vanessa is grateful for your help, Brenda interjected, attempting to smooth things over. Vanessa told me 3 days ago that she needed $300 for a business opportunity, I continued, ignoring Brenda's platitudes. That money apparently went toward her Miami trip this weekend. And judging by the new Louis Vuitton bag, there have been other creative uses of funds as well. Vanessa's face flushed. That bag was a gift, she said quickly. From whom? I challenged. A friend. Which friend spends thousands on designer gifts? The table had become an uncomfortable tribunal, with the Hazes and Porters shifting awkwardly, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. I think this family discussion might be better continued in private, Mr. Porter suggested gently. You're right, I agreed, standing up. And I'll make it short. I'm done paying your rent, Vanessa. You have 30 days to figure out your finances like an adult. Harold's face darkened with anger. You can't just cut her off without warning. Where is she supposed to go? She could move in with you and Brenda, I suggested. Convert that home gym back into a bedroom. Or she could get roommates, or work full-time, or any of the solutions that don't involve me sacrificing my financial future. Why are you doing this publicly? Harold demanded. Is this some kind of revenge? No, Dad. This is me finally standing up for myself, after years of being called selfish by people who have no idea what I've been giving up. You wanted to know why I don't take vacations or pursue hobbies. Now you know. With that, I picked up my purse and prepared to leave. So you're just going to drop this bomb and walk away? Harold called after me. This is why people find you difficult, Audra. You always have to make a scene instead of handling things maturely like your sister. I turned back one last time, surveying the table, the shocked faces of dinner guests, Brenda's tight, uncomfortable smile, Vanessa's tear-filled eyes already calculating her next move, and Harold still somehow casting me as the villain in a story where I'd been silently saving everyone for years. I'm handling things exactly as maturely as they deserve to be handled, I said calmly. Enjoy your dessert. I'll see myself out. The sound of my heels on hardwood echoed through the dining room as I walked away, leaving behind the weight of expectations and obligations I'd carried for too long. For the first time in years, despite the confrontation and its inevitable fallout, I felt something close to freedom. The drive home was surreal. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, but inside I felt a strange mixture of terror and liberation. Years of carefully maintained family dynamics had just been blown apart at an upscale dining table, and there was no going back. I barely made it through my apartment door before my phone exploded with notifications. 3 missed calls from Harold, 5 from Vanessa, and a text from my mother asking what happened. Word traveled fast in our family circle. I silenced my phone and poured wine, hands still shaking slightly. Then I called the one person I knew would understand. I did it, I told Derek when he answered. I told everyone the truth about Vanessa's rent. How did it go? he asked cautiously. About as well as a nuclear explosion. Can I come over? I don't want to be alone right now. 30 minutes later, I was sitting on Derek's couch, recounting every excruciating detail of the dinner confrontation. He listened without interruption, occasionally squeezing my hand in support. I'm proud of you, he said when I finished. It took incredible courage to stand up for yourself like that. It doesn't feel like courage, I admitted. It feels like I just destroyed my family. You didn't destroy anything. You just stopped pretending the existing situation was okay. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down to see a text from Harold. Your behavior tonight was inexcusable. You embarrassed this family in front of my friends. We need to talk tomorrow when you've calmed down and can be reasonable. I showed Derek the message, and he shook his head. Still making it about him, I see. That's his specialty, I sighed. I turned off my phone completely and spent the night at Derek's apartment, grateful for the buffer of physical distance from the storm I'd created. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it the reality that I'd have to face the consequences of my truth-telling. When I finally turned my phone back on around noon, the barrage was immediate: 14 missed calls, 23 text messages, and several voicemails demanding my attention. Vanessa's texts ranged from angry, "How could you humiliate me like that?" to desperate, "Please call me. We need to figure this out," to manipulative, "I guess you never really cared about me at all." My mother, who hadn't been at the dinner but had clearly received multiple versions of what happened, sent a typically conflicted message. "I understand you've been helping your sister more than anyone knew, but publicly embarrassing her and your father wasn't the answer. Can we talk about finding a solution that works for everyone?" The most surprising message came from Brenda. "I had no idea you were supporting Vanessa financially. While the dinner table wasn't the place for this conversation, I respect that you've been carrying a burden alone. Your father is very upset, but I think everyone needs to acknowledge your side of this situation." It was the first time Brenda had ever shown understanding of my perspective, and despite everything, I felt a small glimmer of hope that at least one person in the family might be capable of seeing beyond the established narrative. I called my mother first, figuring she'd be the most neutral party. The conversation was difficult but not hostile. She admitted she'd suspected Vanessa was receiving help from someone, but had assumed it was Harold. "You should have told me," she said. "I could have helped mediate this situation before it exploded." "Would you have?" I asked honestly. "Or would you have tried to convince me to keep helping her, to keep the peace like always?" Her silence was answer enough. By Monday morning, I needed to return to work and face the real world despite ongoing family drama. I'd barely settled at my desk when the receptionist called to inform me my sister was in the lobby, insisting on seeing me. "Tell her I'm in a meeting," I said, not ready for another emotional confrontation. 10 minutes later, my direct line rang. "Your sister is making a scene in the lobby," the receptionist said, sounding strained. "She's crying and saying she won't leave until you speak with her." This was classic Vanessa creating a public spectacle to force my compliance. In the past, I would have given in immediately, rushing down to placate her. This time, I took a deep breath and considered my options. "Please tell security to escort her out if she doesn't leave voluntarily," I said firmly. "And let her know I'll call her after work hours." It felt harsh but necessary. For too long, I'd allowed Vanessa's emergencies to dictate my responses, disrupting my work and life. Those days were over. Later that evening, I called Vanessa as promised, bracing myself for the emotional manipulation I knew would come. "How could you have security remove me?" she demanded immediately. "I'm your sister. You can't show up at my workplace and create a scene," I replied calmly. "That's a boundary I'm setting right now. I wouldn't have had to come there if you'd answered your phone. I'm in crisis, Audra. What am I supposed to do about my apartment?" I can't afford $1,400 a month on my own. I know, I acknowledged. That's why I'm giving you 30 days notice rather than cutting you off immediately. You have options, Vanessa. You can find roommates, move to a less expensive neighborhood, or increase your work hours. Many people live in Chicago on your income. Those aren't real options. You know I can't live with strangers. And I need to be in that neighborhood for my social connections and potential career opportunities. The conversation continued in circles, with Vanessa cycling through anger, pleading, guilt-tripping, and finally, when nothing else worked, vague threats. Dad is furious with you, she said. He says you've always been jealous of our relationship, and this is your way of punishing both of us. That's his interpretation, I replied, refusing to be baited. My decision is about my financial boundaries, not punishment. After an exhausting hour, I ended the call with nothing resolved except my own determination to stand firm. The next day, Harold called my office line, knowing I'd likely answer during business hours. We need to discuss this situation like adults, he began without preamble. Your sister is distraught. I'm happy to discuss it, I agreed. But my decision is final. I can't continue paying her rent.